Hello, welcome to Karma, Destiny and Choice. Today we will be taking up the interesting subject entitled The Wheel of Destiny. And it is my honor to have Sister Denise from the Brahma Kumaris in the studio with me. Greetings and welcome back.
Thank you so much, Magla.
So, having done so many episodes in the series, what I would like for you to tell us is, firstly, why is it that individuals have such an antagonistic attitude towards life, and how can one correct it? I'll give you specific examples. It is quite common to hear people use words like, "This shouldn't be happening." "Why does God hate me?" "Why am I being punished?" "This is not supposed to be this way. Someone is to blame." We find fault with life itself, as if the problem is out there. And this is the deep set belief with many individuals. And then, based on that attitude, we try and fix. So, take us through why we have these deep-seated beliefs, or shall I say misconceptions, and then we'll go from there.
From a psychological angle, when a child is growing up, in early years, they're egocentric. And as life goes by, they begin to realize that they're not the center of the universe, and that whatever is happening is not because of them. And they have to move to the edge of the stage instead of being right in the middle. And this is natural psychological development, child development. But I think that many people just don't actually develop. They don't actually move out of this egocentric position. And I think this is connected with childhood trauma. Because whenever there is a trauma in childhood, you stop growing.
Yeah, from way back when, I remember the term to be fixated at a certain stage of mental and emotional development, to be fixated, which means to be stuck there.
Yes, exactly. And I think that these examples that you mentioned are the conditions of people who just got stuck at that level of development, and they never really grew to a point of being able to understand that you are not able to control life or the world or circumstances. You need to be able to understand what's happening, interpret what's happening. You're responsible for how you respond to circumstances, but you cannot control whether it should or shouldn't be happening. You have to arrive at what is happening. You know, there is an expression that I use which I find quite good. It's happening, but it's not happening to me. So very often people think that whatever is happening to them, is directed at them. This is why they would say, "Why is God punishing me?" Or "This is not supposed to be happening. Why is this happening?" And so we need to grow. And when you mature much later in life, it's always harder to mature, but you have to mature. So we need to shift ourselves from this center stage, egocentric, childish position. It's a bit of an ego death that has to happen, because it's a very egotistical position. And sometimes really bad things have to happen at a certain point in life to actually kill this ego of the child. And then you can become mature and say, yes, it's happening, now what are my options? What will I do? Do I have to do anything? Do I need to do anything? What is required in this situation? So you have to be a lot more dispassionate, a lot more detached, and evaluate, discern, and judge. And these are powers, these are spiritual powers. And then you realize that you don't need to be using words like this should not be, this is not supposed to be, because you learn that whatever is happening is what it is, and it's supposed to be that. Now look for the benefit and profit that can be derived from this situation, and stop trying to make the situation something other than it is, because you cannot change it.
There are some who have the attitude of criticizing life, looking for someone to blame, and fault finding, and also to have the attitude, this is a mistake. Can life make mistakes? Is there such a thing as a mistake?
You know, the expression that's very often told to children is, "You were a mistake. I didn't intend to get pregnant." You'd be told that by your mother. And that's a very serious thing to say to a child, because that child will hold on to that, and they will identify that, okay, my mother, the great authority figure, tells me I am a mistake, and they go through life like that. No, you're not a mistake. There are no mistakes. Not possible. You can do an action that you regret later and call that a mistake. In that sense, it was a mistake. No circumstance is incorrect, because if we're looking at this subject, the wheel of destiny, every single thing is predestined, but you do not know what it is until it's past. People try to figure out, okay, what is destined in the future? The future is the result of the seeds you plant in the present. And what causes you to plant this seed or that seed is your trend.
What do you mean by that?
Well, people do things according to habit patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, you can predict how a person will behave and what kind of consequences there will be. But otherwise, when you're really in the present and you're really using your free will, you will experience the force of your sanskaras, which is your trends, your tendencies. But you also have spiritual power because you're practicing meditation, and you have the opportunity to do something different from what you normally do if you can catch the moment and apply spiritual power to it. But most people are not much in the present, so they miss the moment. They're busy with the past or the future, absent from the present. And so the default is to do what you normally do in that situation, which is what makes everything able to be predicted. So the special practice is be absolutely in the present as much as you can. Discern what the options are presented by circumstances moment by moment, and be very proactive and decide, what will I do now? What will I say now? How will I think about the situation that is there? This is power, because then you can plant a seed, which is a very powerful seed, and which will result in a circumstance that's very positive. And as time goes forward, you come to the fruits of those seeds. You enjoy them because they were good seeds. It goes into the past, then it becomes destiny.
So what you are saying is, for most individuals, our relationship with life is off balance.
I would say superficial.
Oof. That is a bitter pill to swallow, because most individuals will not want to admit to themselves or anyone else that I am superficial.
We live in a very materialistic world. People don't look at things with depth. It's a very superficial culture. This is a challenge. So I think we need to take this word superficial and realize that if you're going to be superficial, or once you get that you're superficial, start going deep. Because, as you say, nobody likes to be superficial, but they won't realize they're superficial until they get challenged, you see. In many ways, this series will challenge people because it's saying things that people don't want to hear, but which are very useful if you do hear it and you do start thinking about it and do something about it.
You know, Sister Denise, people find themselves in impossible situations. And by that I mean their circumstances are so horrific, their situation even manages to elicit universal sympathy. I'm thinking specifically about where you love, for example, a child, and there's nothing that you can do to intervene in that child's karma. I'm thinking of a child that has been killed in an accident, or a child who suddenly dies of a terminal illness. Sometimes we want to act and feel duty bound to act, but are powerless. And I think that feeling of powerlessness is horrible for anyone to feel, but especially a parent to feel. How does one understand the wheel of destiny and the law of karma in that context, a context that is so painful?
In the 12-step program of addiction recovery, the first step is to admit that you're powerless. And that is a very big step, because you cannot begin to turn your life around and deal responsibly with life until you realize that you are powerless. And I think this, which we talked a few minutes earlier, that this arrogance people have of the immature, childish person who believes I can control everything, that has to be taken down. So extreme circumstances will come as messengers to say to that person, understand that you are powerless, even if it's really painful, and it's especially painful for the egocentric, childish people, because they've never done the work of building up resilience. They never become humble. Nothing came to humble them. The situation where you really have to admit that you're powerless is humiliating, but you cannot come down from your arrogance until you are humiliated. This is one of these harsh truths, and it is also said in the Bhagavad Gita that when really bad things happen, you have to endure them. So building this resilience and power of endurance is a very good thing. Having taken that step, you then turn your attention to God, which also means you open your ears to hear a little bit of truth, because up until that time you are not interested in anything other than your own ideas. And a person with a big ego just doesn't see it. I mean, other people may accuse you of being egocentric, but you won't know. They could be talking double Dutch, you know. Circumstances hitting you hard, and then you say, okay, what is this? What is going on? Then you're ready to listen.
Let's look at the Wheel of Destiny from the vantage point of body consciousness, and thereafter from soul consciousness. How does one awareness, consciousness, make things worse, and how does the other one help you to see? I think that's what we're dealing with here, aren't we? Seeing and understanding.
Yes, I think that's exactly what we're dealing with. And when you're body conscious, it's also linear thinking.
What?
Linear thinking means that there's a start, you carry on, and there's an end. That's linear thinking, as compared with cyclical thinking or circular thinking. Circular thinking, you take a point of information or something you want to consider, and you circle your mind around that, gathering all the relevant points, and you kind of zoom out from it. You see a big picture, and then the next is you get back to the original point, but you see the point in all of its depth and complexity. And soul consciousness or spiritual thinking is like that. With linear thinking, you don't know what happened before, and you don't know what happens afterwards, so you've just got a little chunk or a little piece of the puzzle. You can't see the whole thing, and what you want is to be able to see the whole thing. If you're in body consciousness with linear thinking, and you're looking at the concept of the wheel of destiny, you say either it's fixed and predestined, or it's free will, and you cannot process the paradox of both things together. When you're in soul consciousness, you have to be aware of this interplay. There is karma, there is destiny, there is choice. At every moment, sometimes karma dominates, sometimes destiny dominates, sometimes you're required to choose, and you have to dance and shift your position all the time and try to see the big picture, zoom in, zoom out. It's a very dynamic kind of positioning that you have, which means that you're always ready, you have an agility to take the appropriate position and shift that position to the next appropriate position, because time keeps shifting, and as time shifts, what's required is also changing. So you need to have this agility of thinking to capture what's the right position to take and for how much time to take it.
You're very obviously an intellectual. Surprise. So what does one do if one is a heart person, not a head person? And when I say heart person, that's not a euphemism for somebody who's stupid. There are many individuals all across the globe who are deeply spiritual, but who are not deep thinkers like you obviously are. How do they reach the same conclusion? How do they heal?
Somebody may be a deep thinker, they're very interested in processing the ideas, that's one thing. They take those ideas into their feelings, that's another step, and it's a deepening process. Intellectualizing is a word that means you understand it, but you don't know what it means. I don't know what would be the best word to refer to somebody who thinks deeply about something to the point of feeling the meaning of it. And maybe that's a kind of heart. Usually in common parlance, you think you're either a head person, you can figure things out and you don't have a heart, or you're a heart person and you can't think straight. And maybe there are people like that, but you need to converge and work with the head and the heart in balance, and so that you can understand everything and you can feel everything. And this requires a lot of power, because often people who are heart people cannot bear what an unfeeling intellectual can understand and rationalize. So if you have tremendous internal strength, then you can bear what the feeling is associated with the harsh truth.
Stop. You can Say that last line again.
You can bear the feeling of the harsh truth.
That is big. Details. I want details. I'm glad you mentioned that, because my next question would be whether you're a head person or a heart person, or even don't know. How does one deal with life's hard knocks, negative feelings that come with it? And it's a tsunami of horror, trauma, pain. Oh my God. ... How?
To me, when you have spiritual power, the sign of it is that you can feel the horror of what's really going on, and you can bear it. And in spiritual language, we call this the power of accommodation, or it's like a kind of endurance. If you cannot feel it, you're not qualified to do anything about it, because you would, so you know it, but you can't feel it, so you could be harsh. If you feel it, it devastates you so much that you can't do anything, it paralyzes you. So you need to be able to feel it fully and completely, and at the same time know what has to be done, what it means. This is power. Gradually you acquire this. You don't know how extensive it's going to be, but if it can be complete, that's really good. And I think that one of the things we can surmise about God is that God has these powers to feel the intense pain of humanity, and at the same time be dispassionate as well as compassionate.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Oh, that is so lovely. So is that why he comes to our assistance?
Absolutely. This is God's love.
That is so lovely. Sure.
And I think if you consider yourself to be a child of God, you want to cultivate that balance of dispassion and compassion and intensity, the capacity to feel intensely but not be undone by it.
When it comes to the Wheel of Destiny, Sister Denise, my mind goes to those souls across the globe who treat life as if life is the enemy. What of them?
I suppose they have interpreted it and understood it in one way, but they haven't understood that there's many different ways to look at it. Mm-hmm. And so these are limited people, restricted people. So I think that, say, if you say this is a spiritual education, the idea of education is to widen a person's horizon so that they can take in other ways of looking at things, which gives them a breadth of vision that I think helps them to be more mature and more aware that the problem is you're looking at it in a too narrow way.
There's more to it than that.
Far more to it than that. You must broaden your horizon, open your heart, take a look around, and come out of this very narrow view that you have. Because to be narrow or to be naive, this is not a virtue.
Open your heart. That is a lovely note on which to end today's episode. Thank you. Many blessings. So, open your heart. That was one of the last things that Sister Denise shared in today's episode, the Wheel of Destiny. So, I would ask you to look at what your relationship is towards life. Is it healthy? Do you understand everything that's happening? And what I like about it is that Sister Denise shares spiritual knowledge in such a way that she lets us know that anyone, provided they're willing to, can expand their own spiritual education and thereby understand themselves and life to such an extent that you are no longer hurt by anything that's unfolding in your own life. This is a very powerful message, and one that I hope has landed in your heart. Thank you so much for spending this half an hour with us. I do hope to see you again soon. Take care and cheers.